Hey everyone, Dogen here. So I just have a couple of announcements with regarding how I'm going to try and go forward with work now that I'm working full time. So I made a little list, and I just want to take a minute to kind of talk about things that I need to do over the course of the next couple weeks and how I expect things to kind of pan out going forward. So let me just open this up real quick. Sorry, and I'm doing this in English again because I just don't have enough time right now to translate this video into Japanese, and I'll get into that in just a second. So, first thing, I was actually on parental leave from APU for several months before quitting my job, and so what that means is that I am completely independent now, but to a large degree, the amount of free time that I have to spend doing serious work, whether it's shooting videos, scripting videos, editing videos, whatever it might be, the amount of time that I have to do that, I don't anticipate it changing significantly now that I'm free. I do think that it will change a little bit now that I don't have to deal with a lot of the kind of red tape that APU is throwing. Not APU, it's just kind of part of working in Japan as a foreigner. I had to talk to the immigration bureau about the change in visa status, and I have to go to the local city office and tell them about how I need to sign up for like a new pension program now that I'm not paying into the Japanese system through a company. I need to do it by myself. So the other thing is that it wasn't just all those little things that I needed to take care of, even though I wasn't working at APU. The main thing is that I have to watch my kids for a large part of each day, and that's because, as I mentioned in a previous video, I have twins. So this might be a little bit difficult to imagine for people who don't have kids, and particularly twins. But so my wife stays at home, and I do too, but my wife is constantly busy cooking, preparing meals for them, and doing work around the house like laundry and stuff like that. So while she's doing that, oftentimes I have to look over the kids, and that means changing diapers. I mean, I've changed I don't want to get into specifics, but the point is I'm quite busy taking care of my kids, and that'll probably change in to be realistic, about a year. And what I mean by that is after about a year, they'll probably start going to some kind of preschool, day school, preschool, daycare. But right now, we're trying to avoid putting them into any school because it costs additional money, and also because we'd rather take care of them rather than have someone else take care of them while we're able to. So because I'm looking over my kids a large part of each day, like I'm recording this video right now while they're sleeping, which I always do this, as I mentioned in the old video. What I'm trying to say is that I'm quite busy, and even though I wasn't actually working at APU for the past several months, my schedule isn't going to change significantly. And so here are some more kind of concrete details that I'd like to lay out. So there's accounting that I've hired a professional individual accountant that I'm going to be working with from now on. So that should go fairly smoothly. But again, there's a lot of little various paperwork things that have slowed me down significantly, and most of those will go away now that I'm independent, and I'll be able to do kind of more of the serious English advice videos like the previous Q&A in Japan. And I also plan on doing a kind of podcast interview style series of videos with many of my former colleagues from APU and just friends in general. Like I'd like to have Chris Broad, Joey, my friend Albo, a bunch of my YouTube friends. I'd like to fly them out to Beppu, and rather than having kind of a surface level discussions about work, not working in Japan, but just YouTube and kind of things that are trending on the internet, like deep issues that affect foreigners living in Japan, but also how foreigners in Japan kind of perceive themselves and how they perceive the differences in their life and that of the typical average Japanese person. So I'd like to create a whole series kind of dedicated to really talking in-depth, deep discussions with people that are informed, articulate, eloquent, and that have a long history of living and working in Japan. So I will be able to make more videos like that because a lot of those I can kind of do on the spot. But the amount of comedic content and phonetics content, at least again for that first year, I don't expect it to change very much. So that's one of the first things. And I kindly ask for all of your understanding with regards to that because it's kind of out of my grasp, so to speak. Like most of the editing that I do, I shoot again while they're sleeping, and days that I don't need to shoot, I'm scripting while they're sleeping, and I always edit videos that I get back from my editor who kind of does like the raw cuts. I do the final cuts and the subtitles and color correction and stuff like that always when everyone is kind of sleeping. So I stay up, and what I'm trying to say is that despite not having a full-time job, I'm still quite busy. And again, thank you for your understanding in that regard. So, other things that I'd like to talk about. So another change is that I'm currently shooting in this office, and I talked about kind of like an office tour thing before, but I need to actually soundproof this room such that I can shoot whenever necessary. Because again, I'm constantly shooting while my twins are sleeping, not knowing when they might wake up, kind of like worrying, being nervous about how loud my voice is because they might wake up, and then if they start yelling and my wife can't take care of both of them, I need to go out and look after them. And then also obviously the sounds from their crying will come into here. So I'd like to modify this office to be at least somewhat semi-soundproof. So I plan on reaching out to a couple companies in Oita over the next week or so to try and get that done. So that's another example of kind of work that won't be on camera, but work that is necessary for me to do this full time. So I'd also like to modify my desk a lot to make work more productive. Up until very, very recently, well, even now really, it's kind of been a makeshift deal where things are kind of all over the place, and I rush in and I grab something and I put it somewhere, and then I go out and I take care of my twins again, then I come back and I plug something back in that I plugged out or I took out earlier, and I'm going to try and streamline things so that everything is a little bit better. So I've got to make a hole in my desk for my tripod such that I can kind of put my light in directly into the desk rather than on top of the desk. And you guys will see what I mean when I make a video about this later. But so that's another thing. Also, let's see. I have a lot of like very miscellaneous health issues. And that's because, well, a large part of that is because I used to do martial arts tricking. Excuse me. So I have like a lot of really bad joints. I've residue from sprained ankles and like broken toes really, and just like dislocated shoulders and torn meniscus and all sorts of problems. So I talked about in the past how like my knee isn't very good. My knee is actually a lot better than it was before, but I actually have a herniated disc in my back, so that makes things pretty difficult as well. And another thing that I would like to do going forward is take care of myself better than I have been, because in the past, and I don't like talking about this because it's like complaining, and I don't want to like use my time on YouTube to complain, but I've never mentioned that I have a herniated disc because it's not what I want you guys as viewers to see. I want you guys to see my work, my jokes, my writing. But that's something I've dealt with, and I want to kind of do my best to fix permanently such that I can work more seriously. So that I don't have to, take a break every 10 minutes because my back is hurting when I'm sitting down, such that I can, sit and watch an entire movie in a movie theater without my back like screaming in pain. But so I'm going to go to the doctor immediately after recording this, to have my back looked at, and also to have my finger looked at, because my finger recently has my pinky finger in this hand has been hurting a little bit. And this is what I wanted to ask some of you guys about. So I'm an Apple user. I really like Apple products, but their keyboard, I don't know if some of you guys will know this, but it's very low profile. And also their mouse. One second. So their mouse is very, certainly more than the keyboard. It's not very ergonomic. It's based around design. So you have to kind of hold it like this. And I noticed that I was kind of like clawing it and pinching it and holding it with, this joint. And I think that was causing the problem. I'm not sure if it is or not, but I've kind of addressed that by buying a trackpad that I'm using now with my left hand, and it hasn't really affected my productivity very much. But I'd like to ask all my viewers, because I happen to have a fairly okay audience in terms of size, is this bad for joints? Does anyone have experience with kind of like joint pain or finger pain that has been able to alleviate the issue a little bit by switching to like a mechanical keyboard? I know people are really into mechanical keyboards, but I think that's more kind of like a feel, general productivity. Would using a mechanical keyboard over this Apple keyboard that's very, very thin and doesn't have a lot of travel, would that potentially help? If you have any background with this issue, please definitely do let me know, because I'd like to address this issue before it gets any worse. Let's see, is there anything else I'd like to talk about? Okay, yeah, so just a couple more things. Now that I am independent, I also wanted to ask all of you if any of you just had kind of general advice that you think might be useful to me as someone who's going to be working full-time going forward. And what I mean by that is not advice about like working and living in Japan, but working alone. Like if any of you are entrepreneurs or you do self-work or you're self-employed, like if there's anything that you've done in the past where you made a change in your workflow and it significantly sped things up. I'd like to note that I'm very, very good with keyboard shortcuts, whether that's within editing programs or like within Gmail. I know all the keyboard shortcuts, so I'm very good with that. But I do think that there are things in terms of general productivity that I might not be aware of that I think I could probably benefit a lot from. So if any of you have, again, adopted certain working habits or certain programs, I use Alfred as well on my Mac, and that's a big game changer, certainly. But yeah, any kind of general advice about doing work from a computer, whether it's buying like a nice chair or whatever it might be, just things that increase general productivity. If any of you have advice, I would love to hear it, because again, there's certainly things that I'm not aware of that if I become aware of now, it'll save me potentially a lot of time in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. So yeah, any general advice, whether that's it doesn't have to be about Japan at all, just kind of working in general, things that have improved your productivity. If you've heard anything like that, I would love to hear it. Yeah, so going to the doctors today. Tomorrow I'm going to try and get into touch with the reform company to see if I can get the soundproofing done. So because of these kind of, and also I need to go to the city office to take care of the pension paperwork and stuff like that. So I'm anticipating approximately a 2 to 3 day delay in my current work schedule. And that doesn't really affect my YouTube comedic content. This is more of me letting my patrons know that I anticipate my next phonetic lesson getting delayed by about 2 days. So I apologize for that, but I strongly believe that all the changes that I'm about to make will benefit me in an immense, very, very large way going forward. So thank you very much for your understanding in that regard. There's just a little bit of friction and kind of road bumps that I'm running into now that I'm actually making this transition into working full time. So let's see, we're about 15 minutes in. Yeah, that's basically all I wanted to say with this video. I will add real quickly that just before I started shooting this video, I saw something trending on Twitter, Japanese Twitter. It was like hashtag, why do I need to dye or cut my hair? Because in Japanese schools, traditional, well, not traditional Japanese schools, public schools really, most schools require their students to have completely black, straight hair. And even if a 100% Japanese person has like slightly brown hair or like curly hair, they have to usually get it dyed. So I'd like to just really briefly give my 1 minute kind of take on this particular subject because I thought it was interesting. What I mean by that is that I've seen many foreigners in the past talk about this issue as a means of, as an example of racial discrimination. And people say, well, maybe I have a mixed daughter or I have a mixed son and they had to dye their hair. But I think that definitely that's a real thing that definitely affects all of those people for sure. And I'm not trying to diminish their any suffering that came from that. But I'd also like to point out that the majority of the people that are commenting on this on Twitter are 100% natural Japanese people. So there's a lot of Japanese people that just have like slightly brown hair. So I'd like to take this opportunity to briefly remind, I don't want to be like the father, sound like a father or something like that. But again, I've noticed that many foreigners tend to zoom in on problems that are affecting them. And while in doing so, often forget that the same problem or a different variant of that problem often affects Japanese people as well. And I think that this is a very good example of that. Certainly the foreigners and the half Japanese, half foreigner students that have been affected by this have endured a lot of suffering, but certainly a lot of Japanese people have as well. So it's good to be, I think, again, aware that there are also often multiple sides to any given issue about, living, working, just general life in Japan. So I think that's always kind of good to keep in mind, especially for us foreigners in Japan. So again, I don't want to diminish anyone's suffering, but just I certainly, as a foreigner in Japan, often forget about a lot of the problems that face Japanese people and only focus on things that affect me. And I often, complain and kind of complain about really minuscule issues that are really non-issues a lot of the time. And every now and then you see something like this and you realize, oh, maybe there are a whole lot of issues that I'm not completely aware of. So anyways, just wanted to briefly talk about that. Thank you again for your support. It really means a lot. And thank you for your understanding that I can't immediately start pushing out comedic videos like every single day. So, that's going to be a little bit too difficult for me. But I do intend to, with that interview podcast style video that I talked about earlier, increase the general frequency of my how often I release videos. So thank you very much for your continued support, and I look forward to speaking with all of you again soon. Bye.